Hey everyone, it's Lynette and this is my best of 2017 video. One of my favorite things to do on New Year's Eve is to watch all of the best of shows where they show the best of fashion, the best of trends, the best of fads from the previous year. So I thought that I would make my own best of with books for the previous year. A lot of booktubers do this and I have 10 on my list. Now these aren't books that necessarily were published in 2017, but they are books that I personally read, so they might have been published a few years before or a lot of years before. I have sort of a variety on my list. The first book on my list is the second book of the Illuminae Files series, and that is called Gemina. I'm not going to give you a synopsis because I do not want to ruin anything about this book. But if you're familiar with Illuminae, you know that it's written in a different format. It is told through a series of pictures and text messages and instant messages and files and different multimedia like that. The pages are just really fun. They're really cool. But this, it doesn't necessarily pick off where Illuminae left off, but it follows two other main characters that I think will come into play in the third one with the first main two characters. So I think it will come full circle in Obsidio, which comes out next year in the month of March. The next book on my top 10 list, and these are in no particular order, it's just how I happen to grab them off my shelf, so these are completely random. But the next one is one of my favorite all-time books, and that is Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. You, BookTube, recommended Sarah J. Maas to me. I am so happy that you did because she is now one of my favorite all-time authors. But if you are not familiar with this series, it follows an assassin named Selena who is working sort of as a slave in the salt mines because she has been captured for being the world's most lethal assassin. The prince of the land comes to rescue her and enters her into his father's competition to be his father's champion, which means she's just going to be the king's muscle. She's going to do his dirty work. So if she wins this competition, she will have to serve the king for 4 years, doing whatever he asks her to do and kill whoever he wants her to kill, and then she will earn her freedom. The story is so much more complex than that, and the characters are so deep and so relatable and just so real. This story is fantastic. It's a great world, it's a great read, and it's really beautiful writing. So if you have not read this, I highly recommend it. The next book is my one and only biography on my top 10 list, and that is the biography of the notorious RBG, better known as Ruth Bader Ginsburg. If you're not familiar with Ruth Bader Ginsburg, she is one of our 9 Supreme Court justices that sits on the Supreme Court. She is such an empowering woman. She has lived such an incredible life. I think she's like in her 90s and she's still kicking butt on the Supreme Court. She is just such a role model for women and just in general. She's just such a great role model. But her life was incredible and her journey is just such a interesting one. But it has great pictures of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. It's just such an aesthetically pleasing book. It has timelines. It has little things, you know, written in the margin like this that gives you additional information about her. But this was a great read, so if you are interested in learning more about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, you should pick this book up. The next book on my list I did an entire review video about, which I will link down below, and that is Monster by Michael Grant. I'm not going to talk too much about this, but it does pick up from his original series of Gone. So if you have not read the Gone series, you should probably read it first before you pick up Monster. Even though Monster is going to be a series in its own right, it's going to be another trilogy. I think the second one, Villain, comes out sometime next year. I'm not sure what month, but if I had to venture a guess, I would say probably in the fall. But this picks up 3 years after the events of the last Gone book, which is, I think, Light. But it has some original characters mixed with some new characters, so it's a really fun story. It is sort of brutal, so You know, if winter tends to make you be in this depressive state, maybe you shouldn't pick this up in the winter. Maybe wait till summer to read this, where, you know, it's lighter outside and your mood is brighter. But this was definitely a great read, and I highly recommend it as well. I don't tend to read a ton of contemporary novels, so this is the only contemporary novel that I have on my list, but that is A Short History of a Girl Next Door by Jared Reck. I didn't expect to like this. A lot of other booktubers were talking about this book, and so I got it to review, and I got it for free to review, and I actually really enjoyed it. If you want to read my full review about this book, you could go to my blog, which is novelsandhops.wordpress.com. But this was a really great read, and I cried like a baby, but it's told through the point of view of a male protagonist, which I really liked, because I really felt like a 14 or 15-year-old boy was telling this story. The writing is really fun. It was funny in places. I laughed out loud, but then at the end I sobbed so hard. So I don't recommend listening to this as an audiobook, especially if you tend to listen to audiobooks in the car. You may have to pull over to get tissues out and to ugly cry in your car on the side of the road. But this was a great read, and I highly recommend it too. This next book I have such a love affair with. I loved it so much. I went on this big mystery kick this summer, and this was probably my favorite mystery read that I read this summer, but that is A Study in Charlotte. This takes place about Jamie Watson, who is the great-great-great-grandson of Dr. Watson, and Charlotte Holmes, which is the great-great-great-granddaughter of Sherlock Holmes. So there's a murder, they pair up together to solve it. They are just both so I love both these characters so much. They are great characters. I love Jamie. I especially love Charlotte. This was such a fun read. There is a second book out that I can't remember the name of it that I want to read. And then the third book to this, A Case for Jamie, comes out this spring. If you've watched any of my other videos, this next book should be no surprise to you whatsoever. I do have an entire book review video on all 3 books in this series, and that is A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. I couldn't pick my favorite. I mean, if I had to pick my favorite, I'd say it's the third one. But I love this series. All 3 of them were fantastic. I really enjoyed them. It's sort of, the first one starts out sort of a twist on Beauty and the Beast. I mean, it's loosely based on Beauty and the Beast, but you do get a ton of Beauty and the Beast vibes from the first one. But then the second one takes over. It's a completely different story. It just evolves into this beautiful, epic tale. That's the only way I can describe it to you. It is beautiful. And again, it's Sarah J. Maas. Her writing is exquisite. I love the way she writes. I just have such a love affair with the way she writes. But this was a great series. So again, check this out. The final 3 books I don't have physical copies of because I read them on my Kindle, but the first one is The Handmaid's Tale. I started out watching the TV show, which is on Hulu, which is fantastic. I highly recommend that show. But I really, I got like halfway through and I thought, I really want to see how well this matches up with the book. So I paused the TV show, I read the book in like a few days. It was a very quick read for me. I resumed the TV show and I just enjoyed it that much more. So I would definitely read the book before the TV show. There are some changes in the TV adaptation than the book, but they are welcome changes, I feel, because it takes the story to like the next level. So I think there is going to be a season 2 on Hulu, which I'm so excited for because this is such a great dystopian novel. It takes place in a futuristic world where this group wants to go back to the old ways. They want to go back to women having these traditional roles of being wife, mother, housekeeper, cook, things like that. So women are defined by sort of that social class, and there's these handmaids, and they are the ones who are fertile because there's a fertility issue in the world, and the handmaids basically are sent to different households with a captain and his wife, and they try to have a baby with the handmaids. So it's really a disturbing tale, but it's so gripping and you just can't put it down. It was really phenomenal. The next book on my best of list is One Dark Throne by Kendar Blake. This is the sequel to Three Dark Crowns. I do believe this is going to be a trilogy, if I'm not mistaken, so this is the second one. It picks up right where it picks up right where Three Dark Crowns leaves off. It's about three queens. They all have these special powers. One is an elemental, which means she can control the elements. One is a poisoner, which means she can inject any type of poison and not die. And one can control plants and make things grow, and can talk to animals and kind of control animals in nature. It's a really great story. I've talked about it in other videos before, so I'm sure you're familiar with it. But if you have not read this, try to pick this up before the next one comes out. I want to say, don't quote me on it, but I want to say the next one comes out this coming fall, but I'm really not sure about that. I really hope I'm right though, because I cannot wait for the third book. And the final book on my list is called One of Us is Lying, and it's about this group of high school kids that all get detention. They're all in like different groups in high school. One's a jock, one's a nerd, things like that. It's very much like a play on The Breakfast Club, which, for you youngins out there, The Breakfast Club is a classic 80s movie. If you haven't watched it, you need to stop what you're doing right now and go watch The Breakfast Club. But they all get detention, and one of them dies when they're in detention, and they have to sort of figure out who did it. So it's a really great mystery, and they all have their secrets. The title is One of Them is Lying, but really they're all lying because they all have secrets, and it's just a really great mystery. So that is it for my best of 2017. I look forward to making more videos for you in 2018. This is my last video of 2017, so I hope that you have a fantastic New Year's Eve. I hope you have a fantastic 2018, and try to find me on other forms of social media. I have an Instagram. My friend Tiffany is going to make me get a Twitter, so I will have a Twitter up and running soon. But Instagram, I'm very active on. Facebook, you can find me on. Goodreads, just any form of social media, I will have linked down below. Like and subscribe this video, please, 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 because I love meeting new people. I love talking about books, and I am so happy that I started this journey with you, and I cannot wait to continue it into the new year. So thanks for watching, and I will see you next year. Bye, guys.